what is the best thing I can do to really start to overcome feeling shame? The reason why an addict uses is because it fulfills something for them that they are unable to fulfill on their own. Why is meditation so valuable? Well, because it incorporates the practice of stillness and intention, both which lead to deeper connection and wisdom. At the bottom of the abyss comes the voice of salvation. At the darkest moment comes the light.
Acting on emotions as guides to truth. Stillness. Surrendering to what is. Seeking. Using my gifts with purpose. Light. This is the emotional blueprint.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the podcast. I am going to be diving into some things that have been weighing on my mind and some really good questions that have come up lately. So I'm looking forward to this one. I want to start off talking about something that's really been weighing on me this last couple weeks. And I want to start off by asking a question. What was the first ever emotion? What was the first ever negative emotion experienced by the human race? So whether you believe this story is real or not, doesn't matter. It's a valuable lesson regardless. So it's the story of Adam and Eve. So Adam and Eve are in the garden, and then they partake of the forbidden fruit. According to the story, Satan then comes in and says, God will see your nakedness. You need to hide. You need to hide. So they did something that God commanded them not to do, which was partake of the fruit. And then Satan immediately comes in and says, quick, hide. God's going to see your nakedness. So it's interesting, again, whether you believe this is real or just a story, the very first negative emotion experienced by any human being is shame. This feeling that I'm not worthy of good things. Because I made this mistake, because I fell short in this way, I'm not worthy of God in this story. So shame is really a dark veil that has been in, I think, almost every culture since the beginning of time. So James on our last podcast, it was just so beautiful, his definition. I really love this definition of shame. I'm not worthy of good things. I feel like I'm not worthy of good things. I think that's great. So that's how you can recognize it when you maybe start to feel that way. What is the best thing I can do to really start to overcome feeling shame? We've talked about in previous podcasts how shame mainly can come from two places. If I'm holding on to thoughts about myself that are false, those thoughts can cause me to feel like I'm not good enough or that I'm not worthy of good things. Shame can also come up if there's some pain down there that I haven't dealt with, and shame can come up as the messenger or a trigger to tell me that there's still some pain down there. But I want to talk about I feel pressed to talk about kind of a third type of shame that is not talked about enough. There is sometimes when people are able to find the right view of themselves, and even they're able to let go of pain that is down there that the shame is covering up. And even still, when that happens, they still feel shame in their life. And so this is a third type of shame that I call spiritual shame. This is shame that just runs really deep. And that if I find the right perspective, it's not going to go away. This can also apply to anxiety as well, but same principles, but we're talking about shame for now. So a good example of spiritual shame is if, for example, you have grown up and your parents responded in ways like, are you serious? Like you always fail tests, or, things like that. The shame has just been there for so long. It's just the roots of it have just dug so deep. And even if we find the right perspective about ourselves, it won't. And even if people try to tell us that that's not true, or you're amazing, or no, you are worthy of good things, it still will sit there. If you have gone through this process of letting go of the pain, which we'll talk more about today and how to do that more specifically, and if you have the right perspective, but you still feel shame, how do I let go of that? The reason why I call it spiritual shame is you need to be able to tap into a spiritual source. And this spiritual source you have to feel that you have to believe that this spiritual source can actually communicate the deeper truth to you about who you are and what they think of you. This is why I am such a big fan personally. For me, that's God. For you, whatever you feel comfortable with. But it's really valuable. For example, my belief is God enrooted in this knowledge that he knows me better than I know me. And so when he tells me who I am, and I feel the truth of that, that can blast out whatever residue of shame might be deep down there. I have also felt this in nature personally. I believe nature is the eternal mother. And so, like a real being, this is just my belief. And so these parents that I have felt connected to has been really life-changing and can like blast out some of this deeper anxiety or deeper shame that is just kind of hanging around. Okay. Be open to explore one of those. If you're not open to explore either of those, it just seems important to have an entity or something greater than yourself that you feel like has love and wisdom, or that I think the requirement for this to work is, it seems like, is a fundamental belief that God or nature or this higher power knows me better than I know myself. One of the questions that goes along with this is a question with guilt. What is the ideal way to respond when I make mistakes? This is hard because as human beings, we make the same mistakes over and over again. And to some degree, we will do that our whole life. And so I really love the message of guilt, or when we make a mistake, of all this means is that there's a little bit more for me to learn. But I've made this mistake, Corey, 2 days ago, and I just keep making the same mistake. It still means the same thing, that I have a little bit more to learn. And what I've noticed is some people don't take that to enough depth. For example, I might have a tendency to say something rude, to say rude comments to my wife. And after I do this reflection, I'm like, okay, I don't want to do that. I want to be more kind. And so I'm going to really try to be kind when I feel tired. Okay. That's a surface kind of answer. Or I'm going to try to get better sleep so I'm more well rested and have better balance so that I'm So I'm going to be nicer, because I've noticed that I'm more of a tendency to say rude things when I'm not feeling tired, when I'm feeling tired. That's great. But to be able to like tap into like the deeper lesson of that. For example, the deeper lesson, oh my gosh, like and the only way to learn the deeper lesson is some really sincere spiritual, or some sincere reflection and spiritual reflection. And so for me, that might look like meditating and prayer and asking the question, what can I really want to change this. I really don't want this to continue to happen. What do I need to do, or what do I need to look at? And through that sincere reflection and meditation and prayer, I might have an answer come up that says, not only do you need to get more sleep, but you really need to start to cultivate more gratitude in your life. And the deeper lesson is going to be highly personalized to you. It's not going to be what everyone needs in that situation. It's going to be individually packaged, a gift and delivery just for you, so that you really can change. And then guess what? Even if I do these things and get the deeper lesson, I might make the same mistake a week from now. So, and then the deeper message might be something else. But just to take that time, wow, this sounds like a lot of work. It is. It's a little bit of work, but that deeper reflection and that more spiritual practice of reflection is really the way to go. Mother Nature, God, this great hand, sees us better than we see ourselves, and can tell us specifically what we need in those moments. And going back to the Adam and Eve story, just to tie this all together, I just think this is a beautiful lesson. The serpent, or Satan, comes in and tempts Eve to partake of the fruit. And in Satan's mind, he's like, ha, 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 I have totally messed up the plan of God, and I've ruined Adam and Eve's life. But then what happens at the end is God is like, ha, 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 I actually allowed you to do this, Satan, so that I could introduce Christ, or so that I could introduce really good things in their life. So I just think that's a beautiful, again, you can view this story as a symbol or real, but I just think that's a beautiful lesson for our own life, is the purpose of mistakes or Satan or negativity bringing us down is we can actually, if we do this deeper reflection, we can actually use that to our advantage to become stronger and to deepen our resolve for stillness and balance and love and how we treat other people. It's a beautiful gift. This is the quote, good news, is that we can turn something negative and seemingly negative into something that's actually a strength. And I think this ties in really well with people that struggle with addiction. We have touched on addiction a little bit. I want to talk specifically about pornography addiction and some key elements to be able to begin to overcome that. How common is pornography addiction in 2025? You can Google or ChatGPT that. I don't have specific numbers on that, but it is rampant. 70% of people experience consistent loneliness in their life. And for most men and some women that are experiencing consistent loneliness, this is a huge draw. Why? It's one of the quickest and easiest ways to get a hit of connection right away and pleasure. And it is not good. It's counterfeit. All of us know this when we look back on the experience and be like, this is just like fake. This is just like a video. This is just like a fake experience. But in the moment, the brain does not know the difference between fantasy and reality. And the addict, or the person that struggles with this consistently, gets a deeper hit of approval or connection, some type of emotional fulfillment. It's not just about the physical appearance or the sexual gratification. Sometimes it is, but if it's an addiction, if somebody does not want to be doing it, the pornography is going to be hitting on something deeper than just pleasure. It's going to be hitting on this deeper emotional center of feeling wanted, feeling approved of, feeling connection that is missing for them. And I think what's difficult is it's just so difficult for, I guess we're assuming this is a guy in this example that's struggling with his addiction, but it's just so difficult for the woman in this scenario because it's really hard not to take it personal. And it's really hard not to feel like, well, I'm not attractive enough, or I am not good enough, because if I was, then they wouldn't be doing this. Okay, so why do men? So what kind of perspective can I have when I'm the partner? What's an important perspective for me to have when I am a partner in someone that's struggling with addiction? A really important perspective to have is the reason why an addict uses is because it fulfills something for them that they are unable to fulfill on their own. It temporarily heals something for them that they are not able to heal on their own. And so you, partner, cannot fulfill that for them, and you cannot heal that for them, whatever that is. You can support and listen. What kind of expectation is healthy for me to have with someone that's struggling for addiction? It's really important for you to expect and have a boundary with them that they do whatever they need to. See a therapist, have them find a mentor to start to work on this and figure it out. The roots of addiction, though, run deep beyond the surface. The good news is if there is underlying pain down there, like a wound that the pornography or addiction is soothing, if that wound is able to be healed from, the addiction can potentially fully go away. It's a process, but it's really important for you as the partner to feel like it is, going in the right direction. And the other important perspective to have as the partner is don't base their progress on how often they are using or messing up. And that's really difficult. Obviously, over time, the trend should improve. So maybe a good question is like, what's a way better measurement of progress on someone being able to overcome their addiction? The first indicator that you should be looking for is, do they understand the deeper reason on why they are using? Do they know the deeper why behind it? And how active are they in taking steps to heal and to let go and to connect the way that they need to? Just to share an example, one of my good friends has always struggled with pornography, and he is one of the best guys that I've met in my life, but it's always been a struggle for him. And his deeper why is because he did not have the type of connection he needed with his own mom, which for men is very common. Often when there's a pornography addiction specifically, it's always interesting to look at how emotionally connected or how emotionally supported, how much of an emotionally open relationship did they have with their own mom. And also it can be connected specifically with their dad too, in a slightly different way. So there's that deeper wound down there. Okay. So he recognizes that's the source, my friend. And he started going to therapy and started learning how to heal from that. And when we heal from this wound, it makes it so much easier to overcome the addiction. We still have to battle some of the thoughts and temptations, you could say, around it. But there's a ton of hope that it will get better if they understand the deeper why and then are taking some of the steps they need to. Going back, what another valuable perspective to have is just understanding the root of addiction. We've already talked about the deeper element, but to just break that down and a little bit more specifically, there's really three main pillars of any addiction. And those three pillars are physical, emotional, and then mental. So physical, mental, and emotional. Physical, emotional / spiritual, and mental. So even if somebody heals what they need to emotionally, they still have to be really committed to overcoming, finding the right balance mentally. And yeah, they really need to also be committed to have physical balance in their life, and then also managing their mind as well. So it's a long road to completely overcome it. The good news is that if all three of those things are firing, if there's the emotional wound is down there and the physical desire is there and the thoughts are coming in or the temptations are coming in, if all three of those things are firing, it's like, it's game over. It will be automatic. So just them removing one of those pillars, like the emotional healing or the spiritual healing and connection, is a huge, huge step forward. And I've seen many cases like my friend where pretty much most of it goes away just from the emotional and spiritual aspect. For someone, what can somebody do that is struggling with the addiction? One of the powerful things in the 12-step program, one of the steps is to realize that you are powerless against it and that you need help. If you didn't need help, you would have overcome it already and not continue to struggle with it on a regular basis. So seeking help is key. And really not settling for a therapist or a mentor that doesn't have a deeper understanding. Again, the emotional or spiritual, we'll just say emotional, for the emotional roots of addiction, that is one of the core roots of it, is when there is a wound down there that the drug is numbing or that the pornography is soothing. When the wound is gone, the ointment of addiction, it just doesn't hit the same. When that wound isn't open, it just doesn't hit the same. So even though you might continue to do it when that wound is healed, when you've gone through that emotional letting go, it just, you begin to outgrow it. It just doesn't hit the same, which is beautiful. Okay, moving on to another question that I think was really great is on the topic of loneliness. What is the best way for me to overcome consistent loneliness? 70% of people in the United States experience 70% of people in the United States experience consistent loneliness. Loneliness is our spirit trying to tell us that we are low on connection. So there seems to be kind of two types of people in this context of loneliness. There are initiators, and then there are non-initiators. Or there are initiators and there are, people that just don't initiate, but more passive. If you are lonely, it's super important for you to be the initiator, to attempt to try to create more connection in your life, putting together group messages and reaching out to people, trying to integrate into more communities. Now in 2025, it's super difficult. Why are so many more people lonely? Is because there is gradually becoming a disintegration of community. One of the most common questions that people ask me when it comes to like seeking connection is like, dude, where do I go to like meet great people? Like, where do I go to actually feel connected to people? This is why we're, at least in Utah, this is why we're in the process of starting this beautiful wellness center. It's a good question. There's no set answer. You have to, if I were to give some feedback on that, try to start with people you do know and try to meet new people through them. Again, it's not necessarily the amount of people, but if you create connection. Okay, so I think the first step is reaching out to people you know and starting to create moments where you can get together. The second part of this is like, how confident do you feel in your ability to connect on a deeper level with other people? Connection doesn't just have to be deeper, but the two main ways that people feel the most alive or connected is like having fun with someone, and then also like having more of a meaningful emotional connection, which looks like asking more personal questions and relating, sharing experiences and connecting that way and exploring spiritual or emotional topics together. Just, I don't know, deeper conversations. Those are two aspects in which people feel really alive in their life. And so you want to be able to have both of those in your arsenal. You want to be able to like have fun with people and do fun activities with people, but also have the range to have, a deeper connection. So how confident are you in your ability to do that? If you're not very confident, what can you do? We will talk about that in just a second. Our ability to feel confident connecting with other people on a deeper level is really connected to our ability to look at and to deal with our own pain. Pain takes up that space in the whole. And when we are able to let go or remove that pain from the whole, we become deeper. And we intentionally can bring up questions or things that we've learned and relate with other people. And that's so how deeply we can connect with other people is really connected to like our own commitment to let go and deal with our own pain and emotions, which we're going to be talking about more in just a second. From personal experience and what I've seen with people who are finding communities, what are some of the, I don't know, really cool communities that you can begin to integrate with? I'll tell you of a few that people have had really good experiences with. If there's some kind of a spiritual community or religious community, sometimes people can have really good experiences with that in relating that way. Yoga communities can be really cool. And then climbing communities. Like if you're into rock climbing or climbing, those are some cool, really cool communities that I've noticed that people have had really good experiences with. I mean, to go back to those two categories, like where can I go to have fun with people? What are some of your interests? The other feedback I would give to somebody who has consistent loneliness is, if you're single and you are consistently feeling lonely, what do I need to do to work towards having like a family unit? Again, communities are disintegrating universally. People are gradually becoming more isolated, especially in the United States. And one of the best ways to combat loneliness is, if that's really important for you, is to have a goal or desire to have a family. There's accountability there, there's responsibility, which can be scary, but there's so much a beautiful opportunity for a lot of meaningful connection with your kids, with your spouse. And the cool thing is it really hits on, you can have a blast with these human beings and have shared experiences, but there's also can be a lot of shared depth and meaning. So yeah, another beautiful question. I have heard people talk a lot about meditation and its great value in their life, but I'm having a hard time seeing the practical benefit. What is the benefit? Basically, the question is, sell me on meditation. I would love to. I love what Kimberly spoke about in some of the earlier podcast episodes, because one of the issues in the way that a lot of people view meditation is they view it as like sitting in silence on your couch, doing nothing. And it can look like that. But referencing Kimberly, I love this idea of meditation. A good way to view meditation, it's an intentional practice. It's being intentional with what you're doing. So listening to someone can be a form of meditation. Going on a walk outside, leaving your phone, can be a form of meditation. One of the roots of meditation is an intentional practice. When you think of the word meditation, you can view that as having several roots to it. One of the roots is stillness. Another of the roots is intentional. Okay, so why is meditation so valuable? Well, because it incorporates the practice of stillness and intention, both which lead to deeper connection and wisdom. There's this beautiful visual that I love. So I'm going to encourage you definitely to have a quote stillness or meditation practice when you're with people, and the value of listening and learning with people. But also it's really important for you to have a individual practice. And I love this visual of meditation also being very connected to the breath. So let's say that you've had a really busy day and your mind is buzzing. Just by doing a few breaths, the power of breath can be a bridge from breath. The value of breath is it can be a bridge. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, the most surface part of you is thoughts. So let's say you're getting lost in thoughts. Just from breathing and taking a few conscious or intentional breaths, you can then go from thinking to being. And this is where emotions are at as well, is in this second layer. And then what's beautiful is if there's some emotions that you don't need to look at or reflect on, you can then take your breath from that space to go even deeper into this mysterious space of spirit, which is the deeper you. And this is where what we were talking about earlier, this is where these deeper secrets come from of what is so important for me to change so that I can overcome this mistake or overcome this habit. These are where the secrets of life are learned. So meditation or breath, stillness, intention, all of these things can go together really to lead you to why is it so important? Well, without quote, meditation, stillness, intention, you cannot really know deeper wisdom. And if you can't know deeper wisdom, you're going to keep repeating some of the same patterns and limit the amount of fulfillment you can have. I just think this is one of my favorite biblical passages that I've quoted a few times already on some previous episodes, but it's just such a beautiful reminder of the importance of, quote, meditation or stillness. And it says, in returning and rest shall you be saved. In quietness and confidence shall be your strength. This powerful practice of returning to yourself, your deeper self, and God. This is where we are, quote, saved. This is where we learn what we need to. And so taking that time to slow down and to be still, we just can't emphasize how critical and important that is. The goal is to do it every day and have some still spiritual time for 30 minutes every day. The goal for every day is unrealistic for most people, but the goal is every day, so that every other day or we just need it consistently. If every day it's happening, that is going to be great. I think this ties in really well with another beautiful question, which is, I have a friend that is very disconnected from anything spiritually. I have a friend that is very disconnected spiritually and doesn't have any interest in pursuing any spiritual avenues. What can I do to help them? I think sometimes we underestimate our ability to truly be a light for other people. And so the best thing that we can do is continue to grow and connect spiritually ourselves and to be a light to that other person. Now, they can choose to receive that or not. Obviously, we don't have control over their ability to receive that. The other thing I would be cautious of is there's this biblical passage that talks about, like, don't cast your pearls before swine. Remember, the bare minimum of someone of us showing our light to other people or showing ourselves or being vulnerable with other people, the bare minimum of that in a relationship is someone at least being open to receive what we have to offer. This is what that scripture means, not casting your pearls before swine. Why? Well, because the pearls get trampled on by the swine and it doesn't benefit us, and it actually can drain us of our energy and hurt us, and it doesn't obviously benefit them. So just being really cautious, like, someone needs to be somewhat open to, at the very minimum, to receive what we have to offer. And then ideally in our main relationships that there's reciprocation happening as well. Like they're actually giving back as well. But I just feel the sadness involved in this question. And it is very sad when someone chooses to just disconnect spiritually from everything that can potentially help them in their life. I think I like the collective lesson that we see of this with the Native Americans. So the Native Americans, their religion or their spirituality was connecting with their land that they were living in. And then in comes the white man and takes away that land, and they are disconnected from this source. And obviously, we know what happened to the Native American culture. Sadly, it's such a beautiful culture. Sadly, it began to disintegrate. And this also happened when a certain tribes lost, because of the white man coming in, or I think other factors as well. They lost the buffalo. And the buffalo was such a important part of their culture and their spiritual way of life. And as soon as they lost the buffalo, a lot of these tribes turned to peyote and started smoking a lot of peyote to try to maintain their identity and their culture. And then eventually that began to fade. So it's sad because disintegration is inevitable. And to be more specific, why? Well, as we've been talking about, when someone has no interest in spirituality, not only do they have a difficult time overcoming sadness, but as we were talking about earlier, they have a really this deeper shame or this deeper anxiety takes root in their life and it stays there. Okay, so leads to depression. Combination of shame and sadness is a recipe for depression. And it leads to worry. It leads to just unhappiness. I really think a valuable way to view spirituality in this question is it's meant to be the path in which we receive light and truth and wisdom on how to live an awesome, fulfilling life and to feel truly alive. All of us want to feel alive. And so why aren't we feeling alive more in our life? Well, often there's things holding us back. Sometimes it's our beliefs. Sometimes it's actual emotional weight. Sometimes it's, we're too concerned about what other people think or, whatever. Spirituality helps us to have glimpses of insights to know what we can do to feel more alive and to be more liberated. And just from a Christian perspective, in the Christian canon, there's something that's talked a lot about Christianity, like this term, like you need to have faith in Christ, or you need to trust in Christ. I think a lot of people say things like that and they don't actually know what that means. A part of what that means is Christ within us is manifested through feelings of peace or feeling good about something or feeling hope about something. When these positive emotions arrive on the scene, that is, in the Christian canon, that is Christ. If you're not Christian, that is truth. And so to go all in on that, when I have an experience where I feel peace about something, I need to really trust Christ or put my faith in that and really go all in that is what is right for me. And that it's going to lead to feeling more alive and more fulfillment. So spirituality is seeking that depth and that peace and those emotional confirmations to know the path to fulfill our purpose, to have better relationships. It's cool because it applies to everything. Feeling more connected spiritually has personally changed my life. I remember when I was first married, and like most marriages in the first year or two, it is rough. Me and my wife both had thoughts separately, like, oh my gosh, like, did I make the wrong decision? This is super difficult. And I remember moments, I think we had pretty average amount of conflict, but because we loved each other so much, it was so devastating. And I remember my wife crying in the other room and me being in the other bedroom and just us being separate and just feeling this sadness of like, is this going to get better? What do we do when we can't get answers to questions like that from a place of sadness? I don't know. Like, I did get answers and I did get feelings of peace that had words attached to them. Like, yes, like it's going to get better. Like, you need to work on yourself and you need to do this and you need to be more kind and more gentle and understanding. All of these beautiful messages and the feeling of just not just the messages, but just this feeling of truth. Like, yes, it's going to get better. That kept me going. And it's very real. we lean into that and we trust that. We put that in the Christian canon. We have that faith in Christ. Christ is those positive emotions. Truth is those positive emotions. We have to seek them diligently through some type of study and reflection, nature. There's so many avenues like we've talked about on the podcast, but it keeps us strong and it keeps us committed. We need to talk about this question more. You guys have talked a lot about letting go of pain. How do I actually do that? Wow. Really important question. We have talked a lot about it, and we probably haven't gotten specific enough. And so we are going to do that right now. If you know that there is pain there for you in your past, the first thing that you need to do is you need to start establishing some stillness and balance in your life. What does that look like? It looks like I would encourage 30 minutes of, I think if you revisit podcast number 3, me and Kimberly talk about stillness, that'll be great to lay some of the groundwork. So I'll encourage you to, re-listen to that. So the first step is stillness and emotional balance. When the storm is calm, when your life or the waters are more calm, you can then access the pain that is down there. Okay, how do you do that? There's a beautiful reference on theemotionalblueprint.com. You can go to resources, and I think it's you can find it on the resources tab on there, and there's 2 sheets, there's 2 PDFs on there called detailed steps, and they will break down the steps needed to feel the pain. But if stillness is there, okay, the second step is to feel it. And those steps will go down there, go through that. After you are present and are able to simply feel the pain, the next step of letting go is the purpose of pain is the next step is to learn the lesson. Pain is, like we've talked about, pain is meant to teach us something on the surface and then something deeper. So this is where the spiritual reflection and this deeper reflection is really valuable. And then, the last step is there some kind of action? So feel, reflect, and then act. I remember this beautiful experience when I was a missionary in Ireland. And sometimes we would knock on doors to try to share this good news for hours and hours. Like in this experience, it was like 7 hours straight. And if you know anything about Ireland, religion is a very heated topic. You just don't bring it up. And so here we were knocking on people's doors for hours, trying to talk to them about God and how he can help them in their life. After experiencing like 6 straight hours of rejection, I was brand new. I was pretty sensitive to rejection. And I remember just kind of like falling apart and feeling this deep sadness. And so me and the person I was with, we went to the side of the street and we prayed and we asked God to like comfort us and to help lead us to somebody that needed to hear what we felt like was an important message. The second door we knocked, so after this prayer, we felt this peace and we just both started walking without saying anything to each other. We just knew we needed to walk up this hill. And on the top of this hill, it was the second door that we knocked on. A man opened the door and his house was physically dark, but it was filled with darkness. And he said when he opened this door, he saw a ray of light come into around us and come into his house. And so he surprisingly let us in. His wife had just died a week before. And we shared a message of kind of comfort and peace with him. And this man became this man was 65 years old. And at the time he became one of my best friends. And I was 19, 20 years old at the time. I was 20. And I never thought a 65-year-old would be my best friend. I was meant to meet him. And 2 years later, after I left, or a few years later, he died in a tragic car accident. And his name was Tom. And I feel him close. And I know that he is there, and he plays an important role of helping me be more generous in my life. He's nudging me constantly to be more generous. And he's a beautiful man. This experience reminds me of some of the beauty that can come when we surrender and feel the pain. So feeling the pain in this experience, I did that. And then we took some time to reflect, which was in the form of a prayer, I guess you could say. And then we acted, and then something beautiful things always happen when we do that. Change, or we meet the right person, or we say, so this leads to one of the other question. What are some of the unspoken benefits of dealing with pain? I want to share this from a book by Joseph Campbell. He says, at the bottom of the abyss comes the voice of salvation. The black moment is the moment when the real message of transformation is going to come. At the darkest moment comes the light. The act of feeling pain is like going into the dark abyss. We don't want to do that. That is so against our nature as a human being. Choosing to go down there is where the real message of transformation is going to be found. In my experience, I had to be willing to feel this sadness in this moment after getting rejected for 7 hours. And from that, there came a voice of walk this way. And then I met this man that has changed my life, truly, and continues to influence it, even though he's not physically here. This is real stuff. The beautiful nature symbolism of this is something that you've probably heard, is that the night is darkest just before the dawn. What beautiful symbolism of choosing to go towards the darkness and the pain, then comes the light if we seek it. Final question. I feel like I've successfully let go of a lot of pain in my life. How come I don't feel happier? Because pain is a hole in our soul. And when we feel it, it empties out that hole. But then we have to fill it with good things. All pain does is we do feel lighter when we feel it, but it creates the space for us to build something beautiful. Love, compassion, understanding, aliveness, fun, play. Someone that used to be my client, he was heavily addicted to heroin. And he would come in and say, dude, I need to kick this habit. I know that if I can overcome this addiction, that I'm going to be happier in my life. And I said, I was pretty brand new. I said, yeah, let's do it. Sounds good. He successfully was able to overcome this addiction. But then it's Friday night, and he goes home to his apartment, and it's trashed. He lives in like a horrible, like an unkept place. And it's Friday night, and he has no friends. And he's just in this dirty apartment with no friends. And it hits him. This is why I use. It's because I have nothing. And the sad part of this story is that he did go back to using, and then I never saw him again. But I think about him all of the time. And I hope that he is well, I believe that whether he finds answers in this life or not, it's going to come to him. He's just a beautiful human being. So this sacred story of him is a valuable lesson that not only do we need to overcome something difficult like pain or something, but we have to replace it to get the full benefit of it. So letting go is amazing, and then it frees up the space. I'm grateful to those who are sincere and genuinely seeking truth in their life, and that have these questions and that ask these questions. Please, if you have questions that you want us to talk more about that are going to be helpful for you, we want to weave that in to what is weighing on us on this podcast. The way you can do that is go to theemotionalblueprint.com and then just shoot us a message. Thank you.
If you have benefited from this podcast in any way, it would mean the world to us to have you subscribe, to allow us to keep it going and bring on inspirational human beings.